Okay, so we're back. We were just discussing, as Haslin had to answer a question for one of the scientists, and as I said, science goes on. So Haslin, you were discussing about the forums, the associations of LENR.
Yeah, Steve Kutinsky and Dave Nagel started the LENR Industrial Association around 10 years ago now. And that basically did a lot of early stage promotion of the industry and ran one of the ICCF International Cold Fusion Conferences basically as well. So there's the International Society for Condensed Matter and Nuclear Sciences that runs the ICCF conferences. Once it was hosted by LENR. So the ICCF, I think, conferences have been running almost for 20, 25 years now. Yes. So this is where scientists have basically been gathering from all over the world, from about 100 different laboratories, to basically compare their knowledge of LENR. And LENR is a relatively new area of physics, and it's very hard, as I mentioned earlier, to detect the emissions coming out of these units as classic nuclear reactions, although the most classic nuclear reaction you can imagine is actually seeing that hydrogen becomes helium or oxygen becomes carbon. This is fission and fusion basically. So we're seeing that very, very clearly in our reactors. So the experimental evidence is there. Man used fire. I think man has now used fire for 1.5 million years. I think man has had control over fire for at least 500,000 years. And where we are now is we're at the stage where basically we can create this new fire, as you put out on your company's called New Fire, but no one actually really understands how this new fire is actually working at the atomic level. There are lots of theories out there, and there's lots of speculation, but we know how to start this new fire, this LENR reactions. We know how to control them, we know how to maintain them, we know how to use them. We need how to make money out of them, but do we know actually, it's like fire. I think fire, we only understood the physics of fire less than 100 years ago. Yeah, that was where our understanding of that came in. So we don't have to know how this technology works. All we need to know is that this technology does work, it is safe, it is stable, it is reproducible, it is massively scalable, and it can produce energy at a lower cost than any other energy source on the planet.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, and yes. Well, first, we're the new fire. There seems to be quite a few of those words out there. But yes, I mean, it's apparent that there needs to be a change, and going from fire to the new fire, which is happening at this time with these LENR companies. Yeah. As I've seen with so many of them and worked with them, I realize that this has, as I initially stated, culminating to a point now where, you being one of the top 5 companies, stated by some of the top physicists out there, are ready for this, international change. And you see the associations and the forums, and you're trying to put one together, or at least collectively trying to coalesce the forum or association to make the movement a little faster. Now, in your company, ENG8, as you are right now, what do you feel the timeline is for the world to see this energy actually make it to the household, and and for the world to accept it? What would it take for the world to accept that this is actually happening?
From our perspective, and I think a number of the other companies' perspectives, what we need to do is to see that there is practical applications that are supplying energy. So our company is completely focused at the moment to be providing commercial energy to our local companies in Portugal by the end of next year. And that sounds like a grand statement, but it's probably going to be, by the end of next year, 100 kilowatts of energy being provided to a company that's consuming megawatts of heat. So we'll start off by providing heat, which is for drying ceramics. That's the main industrial application for this technology in the next 2 or 3 years. The reason is it takes a long time to develop a product that's reliable enough and stable enough that you can ship it from a factory to someone's home, they can turn it on, and they don't have any warranty problems for 3 years. We're not at that stage. We're at the stage where steam engines were 150 to 200 years ago. when you used to buy a steam engine or you used to buy a car, you used to get the engineer to be trained, or the engineer used to come with them. We're at that stage. So our customers around here, or our future customers around here, need megawatts. So we'll be deploying on site, probably 5 or 15 minutes away from our laboratory. We'll be deploying beta units. And for the next 3 years, we'll focus on going from 100 kilowatts to a megawatt to 100 megawatts. That's our aim in the local area, to really build up, a solid generating capacity base, prove the technology is safe, reliable, and we get the production process working so that we can then start shipping further afield. So it'll be then out of our region to other areas of Portugal. But we've had interest from other countries, so they're currently interested in sending their engineers here, working with us on this phase. Then basically their engineers then take away the technology and set up production lines in their own countries. And by doing that, we can then very quickly go around the world and provide energy independence for families, for companies, and for countries. That's the aim.
And do you, thank you. Do you feel that this could accelerate dramatically? Let's say you're one of the top 5 companies. We've even heard from a recent physicist, Jean-Paul Bavarian, thinks you're number 1 of 2 or 2 of 1 with a Clean Planet out of Japan. So you find that no matter which one of these companies actually come first with the commercial product, do you feel the obviously a massive influx of money would come in, just like we've seen with AI once you put a face to it, or a commercial acceptable product like the 3.5, that you could actually have accelerated your timeline because of the first commercial product hitting, and this, as I've already known from people that I speak to in Wall Street, saying, hey, if it's a commercial product out there, I mean, all these companies are just going to be, flooded with money, knowing the margins that are available, and give you an even stronger opportunity. And this whole area, if I can prolong this, I know you're not just interested in being number 1, you're interested in just somebody, all of you collectively in this effort to make this happen for the world, for the people.
Yeah, the primary energy market, if you're an oil and gas company, is a 4 trillion market. But that's at the primary extraction and refining stage. Once you go further downfield, it's like the steel industry. You go and buy a lump of raw steel, for example, it's $1 a ton, for example. By the time it gets to being a needle, it's at $100,000 a ton. It's that thing. So the energy industry also has its distribution markups and margins. So what we hope to be able to do is to basically capture the investment that will go into the hot fusion world to start with, because when people really understand the economics of hot fusion versus the inverted commas cold fusion is just commercially off the shelf from AliExpress. Like 90% of our components come out of China from AliExpress, because it's the biggest market on the planet to buy low-cost components. You can't build a nuclear reactor or a fusion reactor, out of an online supermarket. You can't do that. And therefore, when you look at an LENR reactor, its costs are, half the price of building, it's a third of the price of building a solar panel or a wind turbine, and yet it operates 3 times more than they do, because we're not relying on the sun coming out or day and night and wind blowing. So our operating costs and our depreciation costs show that our levelized cost of energy should be around €10 or $10 a megawatt. So that's basically 3 to 10 times cheaper than it would be from any other energy sources at the moment. And once the investment community realize that, and the scalability, we don't have to build an industry behind us which would basically help us build reactors like the tokamaks. There's an industry already out there that's supplying all the components that we need to multiple industries, including the automotive industry, because it's basically automotive components that we're using. So when you take that ability to scale up, there's a facility run by General Electric, GE, in Kentucky in the United States. It's their biggest, I think, assembly plant for white goods in the United States. And they produce 2,500, let's say, items, whether that's an oven or a refrigerator, an hour. Now, that refrigerator or that washing machine is about the same size as a 100 kilowatt LENR reactor to produce electricity or heat. So it's a 100 kilowatt generator. If you were to run that plant for 1 year, it would have produced 1 terawatt of energy generating capacity in 1 year. Now, America, including all the heating for America, all the cooling for America, all the transport fuels for America, and all the electricity for America, for the United States of America, is 1 terawatt of generating capacity. So you could have literally decarbonized, and I know the new administration in the States and President Trump is really looking at providing a low-cost source of energy. They don't care where it comes from, whether it's fracking or whether it's from wind, they don't care, but they're saying don't waste money on very expensive, grandiose, alternative energy schemes when there's much cheaper energy in the ground, because any family or any company or country is going to be, its economic competitiveness is its primary cost of energy. And so for the United States of America, if it embraced this technology, and let's say GE was to manufacture for 1 year one of our plants, America would have a cost of energy that would be 5 times lower cost than it is now, and it would be obviously the most competitive country in the world. And the same goes for every other country. So as we lower the cost of energy, you'll see a massive economic boom, because we're now not wasting our money on the energy cost. We can now value add these products and make them super efficient, and AI can be massively adopted because AI will be a much cheaper tool to run, because its effectively energy cost, both environmentally and financially, will be 5 times less.
Yeah. So so you're talking about exponential growth. If I'm correct, the reason why, let's say, solar or wind or any of those aren't actually working to the point where their subsidies come in is because if they could actually pay for themselves, produce enough energy, then we would have a solution. So the margins are in your solid state event of having energy continuously coming out. As you know, you can scale that exponentially. Will find yourself lowering the costs. I mean, basically, eventually paying for itself to nothing. Because once you have enough energy coming out that's in excess, and I always use this term, ATM, and if you put in $10 and then you get $100 out, well, you're going to keep buying ATMs to keep doing that. Yeah. So inadvertently, you're really getting yourself eventually free, continuous, abundant, limitless energy.
In a sense, you would be, because, and you're not. I'll explain that.
Sure.
There's always a capital cost to anything you're going to produce, basically, and that's always going to have a repairs, maintenance, and an overhead depreciation cost. That's primarily the cost of a wind turbine or a solar panel, and the same for an LENR catalyzed fusion reactor. Now, imagine now GE or Ford or BMW or whatever, they're producing cars for the next 10 years with LENR reactors inside of them. Well, in 10 years, they're going to be on the second-hand and third-hand market, and they're going to be, in India, Africa, and all the poor areas of the world which do need low-cost energy to drive their populations out of energy poverty, educational poverty, etc. So by the wealthier countries in the world adopting this technology very fast, there will be a very fast filter down to the lower economic GDP countries in the world.
Sure, and I get that part. So I guess my perspective was that once you've paid for that product, and then of course keep getting more and more energy coming out, the initial costs are there. That's the product cost.
Yeah.
But once that's far more above the margins, as Wall Street wants to see what are the margins involved here, what's the initial cost of the product. what's the end result? The end result is that once you've paid for that product, which could take a year or two, but you could also see your product last, what, a decade, 2 decades?
Yep.
Yeah, and then during that time, you obviously have, provided yourself continuous energy, and like I said, free, abundant energy, but, minus the, net cost of it, which is, if I'm right, negligible considering the amount of savings that you can make from this. So let's, if we can move on to, a different topic in the LENR space. Now, as we say, there's quite a few companies out there, as you said, about 10 of them that are strong. And I peg you for being one of the top 3 myself in dealing with you. I've noticed that in the LENR, we call it electron capture, quantum hydrogen, all the different companies. How do you feel at this point today that, with your efforts that you're making, that, we could be within a couple of years having manufacturing this technology?
Well, Miura in Japan is already partnered with Clean Planet to develop industrial boilers with the LENR reactors they produce, modular reactors they produce.
Quantum hydrogen, yeah.
Yeah, quantum hydrogen. So effectively that's happening. And the other one is, I believe, Andrea Rossi has been agreeing production contracts with companies to basically put his into production.
Yes.
We've taken the route where basically we're going to productionize in-house to start with, and then we will license to the major manufacturers. And we need to do production in-house because the rate of knowledge, the rate of evolution of the technology is very, very fast at the moment. So we can be evolving this technology every 30 days. We have a new version basically, or a modified version. It's like a software business, because in software, the cost of actual evolution is the cost of the humans being involved in the software development.
Right.
The cost of replicating the software is very, very low cost. We're not quite there, but it's a similar model. The cost of remaking a machine is very, very low. So it's just the cost of the team members basically all getting together and reinventing the machine every month. And now we're in the process of embracing AI onto the machines. So we've been automating the machines so that they can be literally testing themselves. But now we want them to be analyzing themselves and running their own routines. So next year, we're going to be basically, all of our different energy cell varieties are going to be basically AI enabled. And that means our rate of knowledge gain is going to be, it could be 1,000 times faster than just being with humans.
Sure. I'm 20 years Wall Street, and I've dealt with a lot of emerging technologies, from lab to commercialization, whether it be 3D printing or near field solutions, and and I've seen those explosive markets just happen, especially initially. And I know that at this point in my followers, we've had literally thousands of people wanting to get involved with these companies, but none of them are public. So they always ask, well, where can I see the stock symbol? And I understand that. It's let's say it's an emerging from lab to commercialization, isn't where you can just go out and find it anywhere as far as a ticker symbol or even what they call a tombstone offering. And so at this point, if you could say something to my followers or to anyone, what can they do to get involved in the infancy of this potentially explosive industry in low energy reaction, or however it's stated by so many companies, but revolving around that acronym?
Well, I think the democratization of energy is very important, but also the democratization of investment is very, very important. So rather than feeding a giant machine on Wall Street, at least this is what and the idea of the large stock markets, of course, is so that individuals can basically invest in quoted stock. But there's also regulations to protect investors from basically from losing their money. And of course, this is an early stage venture in the sense that the ENG8 as an organization has only been going almost 8 years now. But prior to that, the scientific teams that we've brought on board, they've been, one team has been at it 30 years, one team 20 years, one team 10 years. So to give you an idea, it's like a long-term venture. So we're not like, we didn't just appear yesterday. And for your audience, Steve, the most important thing we can do is to basically engage with them and give them the opportunity to invest in us, because going through the laborious process of dealing with VCs or private equity, where there's a very limited amount, there's a large amount of money out there, but there's a limited amount of specialist time to be able to vet and process companies going through that gateway. And generally, they need companies with revenue. They're very much into revenue. So we're pre-revenue at the moment, like the hot fusion companies. Yeah. The hot fusion companies have basically raised, I think, about 10 billion over the last 5 years. We intend to, go into that space and bring that abundance to the other LENR companies by trying to coordinate all the promotion activities with them. But right now, to basically develop this technology as fast as possible, it's just dependent on the amount of money that we can get in the door. So our stock currently is valued at around 100 million English pounds. I think that's like 140 million United States dollars. But the top hot fusion companies, which are a decade at least away from any positive working reactors, are valued at 10 times where we are at the moment. They're in the $1 billion space. So we like to think that our stock can grow a lot in the next 5 years, because we have a substantial lead over all the other companies in our specific technology space, but also over the hot fusion space. We've got a massive lead, decades probably, and our levelized cost of energy, we predict and we predict it based on actual numbers of the equipment we're buying at the moment. So our levelized cost of energy will be 5 times what comes out of any other hydrocarbon source or solar or wind source at the moment. So we're very well positioned from a cost point of view.
Okay, so I take it simply said that at this time, knowing that so many people are looking to figure out how to get involved into LENR, and their interest is obviously be in there before this takes hold, the first commercial product hits the street, no matter which company it is. That they can just reach out to explore your company, because we don't recommend stocks or companies, but we ask people to explore those companies, and we put your company out there, ENG8 Energy, as well as many other ones. But just to give people a little insight onto that, because there were just so many people are like, where do I go? What do I do? And once again, most of this sector is private placements. Most of it is accredited investors, and it is regulated regulatory bodies that do watch over it, because there are unscrupulous people and bad actors out there. So it does put put a little taint on the industry or the sector, as it would any one other ones, without having that regulatory body oversight. So at least at this time, Haslin, I do appreciate you coming on, and look forward to having you on again. Thank you so much for all the information, exploring all the changes and the progress and where the industry is today, and how you can get involved with it, the associations, and how this is going to help the planet, how this is going to change the world for a better place. It is going to, democratize, decentralize energy for everyone, and that's ultimately where it does need to be to stabilize this planet. And once again, I do appreciate you coming on.